Hello friends, I'm Danny, and my claim of fact speak is about how I think that how hydraulic fracturing or fracking has long-term consequences. Now overall, I have three main points. The first one is that fracking can cause damage to the environment. The second point is that fracking can cause destructive situations. And the third point is that fracking drains a lot of our resources. Now for the first point about how fracking can damage our environment, fracking is pretty much where you make a mix of chemicals and water and you put it into the rock, and you insert into the shallow rocks. Now, these chemicals, if they leak and get into our fresh water sources, they can contaminate our fresh water. Now, this actually happened in Bangladesh where 4 million water wells were contaminated and made undrinkable by arsenic, I believe it's how it's pronounced. Another environmental issue that can occur is that greenhouse gases are released during the process of fracking. Now, each plant will produce tons of carbon dioxide, which will all go into the atmosphere and damage the ozone layer. Now, for the second point, is that fracturing can cause destructive situations. Well, going back to the gas leaks, fracking can make a methane gas, which can become a catalyst for explosions. Now, this actually happened in, I think it was called Dunkard Township. A Chevron fracking site exploded and caused damage to the nearby town. Another aspect that can occur is that small tremors and earthquakes can be caused by the fracking. Now, in general, they're not harmful. They're very small, but there are instances where they go up to 4 on the Richter scale, and they have been ordered to cease operations for periods of time in certain situations because seismic activity rose too quickly. The final aspect for the destructive situations is that accidents can occur, and these accidents can become very deadly. Going back to the mix of water, there are hundreds of different chemicals that are mixed into the water, and it varies from mix to mix. And of these hundreds of chemicals, about 20 or 30 of them are very dangerous, and if they're leaked, they pose a very serious threat to the surrounding area. Now for the final point, is that fracking uses a lot of resources. Now, to keep the fracking site running, we need to pour a lot of water into the rocks, we need to use a lot of water. Well, each plant uses millions of gallons of water, and if you think about it with respect to the earth, there's millions of gallons of water is a small fraction of the earth's water. But if you think about it with respect to the nearby communities, the communities are usually small populations of around 50,000. Millions of gallons of water being taken from them would take a massive toll on their water sources and the nearby environment. And after the process is done, we need to get rid of the water mix. The water mix is various chemicals, which are some of them are dangerous. Now, one way to dispose of the water properly is to make a treatment plant. But this would take a lot of resources. We would have to make the plant, we have to move the water to the treatment plant, and then we would have to keep it running. But a more popular way that is technically more efficient is to just put it back in the ground. When you put the water mix back into the ground, if done correctly and in the correct area, which is pretty much an area which is away from plates, it should have little consequence. But if done incorrectly or in the wrong area, it will usually lubricate pressure zones, which will make plates shift and possibly cause more tremors. Now to restate, we know that, you've heard that fracking can cause damage to the environment, it can cause destructive situations, and it takes a lot of our resources. Well, we know that fracking has long-term consequences now, so we must be prepared to face these consequences if we continue using fracking in the future. Thank you.
All right, Danny, the proposition's clearly identified. All the structural stuff is okay, although your third point I don't think is very clear when you cite it. You signpost as you go along, which is pretty solid. The problem here is the evidence. You don't cite any sources. I've got one example that you make mention of, and I think you need a source citation on that. There's a whole bunch of hypothetical stuff that's being presented here. There's no hard data on any of this. There's not a single authority that talks about the risks that you're talking about. So the biggest problems that I have aren't the structure of the speech. I actually think you do a nice job speaking to us and presenting the ideas behind the argument. What you're lacking is proof for that particular argument. All right, Megan, you're going to be our last speaker for this.